Greetings and hello. I'm Dr. Chris Zimmer. This is Moaz, the mother of all signs, talking about the rapture. And last time we were looking at November 11th, and I think all of us thought that was going to be the rapture at that time. It turned out to be a lot of different signs, and it even gave us a start date for a count to when Venus appears in Libra. So a lot going on last time, but it didn't turn out to be the rapture, as there were a number of dates in the past that led us to signs, but nothing happened. It looks like this may be the end of the road. This may be the end date. So let's get into it. I'm going to give you the meaning of 1111 right off, and I'm also going to give you what I believe is the prospective rapture date of 12/22, and I'm going to show you here pictorially, and then later on we'll go through each and every sign in detail. But it turns out that we're looking at two major signs that are 11 years in the making, and in the top row you can see the annular solar eclipses we saw from Albuquerque, New Mexico, and they start at 5/20/2012, and the end is 10/14/2023, and in both times you'll see 153. Well, there's another sign that happens after that, exactly 3.5 weeks, and I want to thank Repo Man for telling us about the 84 hours, the woman at the temple, because that gave us the format now for 3.5 hours, 3.5 days, 3.5 weeks, which was the time Jesus, from his death to his resurrection and ascension that day. One note on that. We may differ a little bit on the absolute time scale. It really doesn't matter here, but I just thought I'd throw it in there because this is all from the sign of Jonah, which is Jonah in the belly of the fish for 3 days, 3 nights, and Jesus in the tomb, I believe 3 days and 3 nights, but the 3.5, I think, is actually from his death to the resurrection, and there's an extra 12 hours in there, which may be for, you might call it, administrative duties, the acquiring of the tomb, the transportation of the body, and then finally in the tomb, the preparation of the body. That could easily take 12 hours. And then from the time he was sealed up, then Jesus was actually in the tomb 3 days and 3 nights, at least. That's, I believe, how that scenario played out. But that's neither here nor there. We've got 3.5 weeks between the last annular eclipse in Albuquerque and another sign that happened on 11/9, and I'm going to show you all these in detail a little bit later on. I'm just laying it out here so you kind of have an idea of where I'm going with this. And the 11/9 happened, it was a conjunction between the moon and Venus, and this is seen again in Albuquerque, and the time is 1:53:23 Mountain Standard Time. So this ties both of those signs together, and it tells us what's going on. They're tied to the rapture through the 153 big fish. So that's the 1 11-year-long sign, those two annular solar eclipses. And if you go to the bottom row, you'll see the galactic alignments, which started at that date on 12/21/2012, where everyone thought that, well, the world's going to end because the Maya calendar rolled over on the 13th back tune. But anyway, here you see the Great Galactic Alignment on 12/21 happens at 1866 in Israel. And I'm going to show you that in detail too, how I came up with such a precise time. And then we've got another galactic alignment in 2018 that happens at 777. And then it's 5 years from that one to the one on 12/22, and then it's also 11 years from the first one on 2012 to 2023. That's 11 years. And then the one in 2023 will occur on 12/22 at 1:53:23 p.m. 5 days after that, there's Sun Sagittarius, where the sun's going to be on the line between the two top stars in Sagittarius on 12/27 at 777. So we have some very interesting signs going on here. But this, I believe, is the source of the 1111. We have two major rapture signs that are 11 years in length, 1111. And we've already gone through the annular eclipses in the last video in detail. I don't think there's any need to do that here, so I'm going to kind of go around that a bit and just leave that as a finished sign. And we're going to go through the galactic eclipses because there's a lot of detail there and a lot of signs surrounding it. Okay, I'm going to throw in a couple more 1111 connections just so we're on the right page, and that's Drayton Bunyan gave us 9/23/2017, which was the first Revelation 12 sign. You add 2240 days, and that brings you to 1111 this year. Strong's G 2240 means to have come, be present. The usage is I have come, I have arrived. And the last three digits of the first 1111 digits of pi are 424. Strong's G 424 means to go up, and the usage is I come up, go up, ascend. This is all rapture talk, of course. Incidentally, on May 20th, 2012, from that first sign or that first annular eclipse to October 14th this year is 11 years, 4 months, 24 days. So there we have another instance of G 424 to go up and ascend. And Trevor Woods 3367 mentioned on the 11th day of November this year, it'll be 5 years since the earth rang like a bell. From November 11th, 2018 to November 11th, 2023 is 1826 days. Strong's G 1826 means to go forth. The usage is I go out, away, or depart. Again, more rapture imagery here. And Tevet 10 is the target date that we're looking at, 12/22. On the Hebrew calendar is Tevet 10. 1010 is 22 in binary, and we'd be looking at the 22nd. And also Revelation 22 gives us a description of heaven. 22, of course, is 2 times 11. And finally, the 5 planets aligned on April 11th, 2022. We pretty much explored this to the hilt in Pi, the third witness, where Drayton Bunyan had drawn from John 21:6-8, using those two clues on the right side of the boat, 200 cubits from shore, and using a block of 2023 digits that maps out 602 on both sides of 819 digits in the middle. And then you can decode that, and we get 602 is apocalypsis, which means an uncovering on both sides. Excuse me. And in the middle, we have 819, which is the sum of 666 and 153. But the one thing here that we never did go in depth is why 819, and what does 819 mean? And I believe now I know what it means. So let's take a look at the 819. But I'm going to add one more thing to it before we go there. And the meaning of 819, I believe the origin is 7 classical planets times 117 days for the Mercury's synodic period, gives us 819 days. Strong's H 819 is trespass, sin, offend, trespass, offering. Strong's G 819 is dishonor, vile, shame, reproach. So this has some pretty negative connotations. And it does too in Scripture as well. So if we look at Genesis 8:19, it says every beast, every creeping thing, these are all the animals coming out of the ark. So it seems we have beast imagery here. And then Deuteronomy 8:19, and it shall be if you forget the Lord and walk under other gods and worship them, that you shall surely perish. More negative connotation. Daniel 8:19, and he said, behold, I will make thee known what shall be in the last end, which means future. of the indignation, for at the time appointed the end shall be. So this is end times talk here. And then Mark 8:19, it says, when I break the 5 loaves among the 5,000, the 5, of course, refers to the end of grace. Grace is represented by the number 5. And then finally, in Romans 8:19, for the creation waits in eager expectation for the children of God to be revealed. Well, we are the children of God. We're the Christians. And how are we going to be revealed? Well, when we disappear, when we go up in the rapture, everyone's going to know exactly who we are, or at least the ones that are not deceived. Let's go back for a moment to complete setting this up, going to the second witness, Nisan 1 of this year, March 23rd. I have to preface this by saying this is coming from New Jerusalem City, the dimensions of the city, which are in Revelation. And if we do the calculations, we find a 55-degree angle and a 125-degree angle. If you add those two together, you get 180 degrees. So 55 degrees from Nisan 1 this year is May 17th, the eve of Ascension Day. And Revelation 5:5 ties into this. This is about Jesus now being worthy to open the scroll and the 7 seals. And then the 125-degree angle is about us, the church, because it ties into Revelation 12:5. And a child was caught up to God and to his throne. And if you count Nisan 1, 125 days, you wind up at July 26. Well, we had July 26 came and went, but it is 726 as it states in Strong's, Harpazo, which is the rapture. So it's just one more sign pointing to a date later on. If we add 55 and 125, we get the 180-degree angle, and Strong's Concordance G180 is unable to stop or unceasing. So this is when Jesus, represented by 55, and the church, the child, are joined, then they will be unceasing, inseparable. Okay, and let's see, one of the signs on 7/26, on July 26th, we were pointed by Patrick at Hourly Watch to 919 for a, you might call it a second Revelation 12 sign. I'm kind of iffy on that because I don't know whether the crown would be the Virginie stars or the Leo and the 3 planets that show up to make up the crown. I don't think that makes much difference. The point is that the child is birthed from Virgo at that time. And then on the same day, 919, we also have Nishimura and Schumacher-Levy in Virgo, and Nishimura is the head, which is optimally joined to the body, Virgo. Nishimura, of course, or the head, is Jesus, and then Virgo, the body, would be the church. So this represents Jesus and the church coming together, the head and the body. This is 94 days to galactic alignment, 3 months, 3 days. And this also points us to John 3:3, which speaks of you must be born again. So I'm assuming here that we must be born again in order to go in the rapture, because that's the day it's pointing to. Also, Revelation 3:3 is cautioning us to watch. So we have to be watching for that day and be on point. So those were signs. These signs already, naturally, they took place. Nothing happened that day other than these huge signs, but they're pointing to something coming on later on. One more thing, I want to go over the 125th day. Revelation 12:5 is the star scripture for this, and of course the child being caught up to God and to his throne. This is a rapture verse. The 125th day on the 2023 Gregorian calendar is 5/5, and Esther is also a typology of the church, or typology of us, the bride. The name Esther is mentioned 55 times in that book, linking it to Revelation 5:5, where Jesus opens the seals in the book. Also, if we jump to the Maya calendar, 13 Baktuns times 144,000 days gives us one long count cycle of 5,125 years. And 5 years from the Revelation 12 sign in 2017 to the 125th day is July 26, which this year, which screams Harpazo. Also, 5 represents the end of grace on the second 125th day in 2023. And I'll explain what I mean by the second 125th day in just a moment. But let's go to the pi string. You see 153, 2023, 68. That gives us a date for the 153 big fish, 6/8, 2023. Plus that 125 days gives us 10/11. Now we have another instance of 726. So another sign telling us Harpazo. And these are dates that I've, was thinking might be the rapture previously, but they just turned out to be, strong signs that the rapture is coming. Pi string 819, there's that number, 819, 6, and then 6, of course, is the number for Abel in Strong's. And he lived Anno Mundi, or AM. So this is saying when you find the time is going to be in the AM. 819 plus 125 days, well, this actually would be that second 125th day, plus 125 days is 1222. This is the 10th of Tevet, 1010 and 22 in binary on the Hebrew calendar. There are also a few more tie-ins to 2 and 11 and all that in the 125. If we factor it, we get 11 times 11 plus 2 times 2. This represents 2 11-year signs, each containing 2 endpoint signs. 125 can also be factored into 5 cubed, 3 instances surrounding the rapture sign, and you'll see that when I'm done. At the very end, I'll show you a summary, and you'll see there are 3 5s surrounding the rapture sign. 125, again, is Tevet 10. 1010 is 1222 on the Gregorian, and we can factor that into 10 times 10 plus 5 times 5. So we have 2 of the 5s, which will be completed by 1222, and then one 5, there's a third 5, is not completed until after that, after the prospective rapture. Okay, so here it is on a timeline, and in 2023 we have something that looks like a pregnancy and a birth. If we count the days from Nisan 1, March 23rd, to that prospective rapture date, 1222, it's 275 days, which is 9 months exactly, including the end date, which is the term of pregnancy. And we couldn't see this before because it's obscured that there's another time period in between these 225-day counts. So it made it virtually impossible to see that, that there would be another start date, but that's what it turned out to be. There's 125 days from Nisan 1 to 726, the first Harpazo date, and then we have 3.5 weeks. There's that, the lady at the temple, 84 years old, representing 84 hours or 3.5 days that Jesus was in the tomb, from his death to his resurrection. So there's that 3.5 week period. That takes us to another start date, and that is, of course, the date we just got, 819 from pi. If we count 125 days again, we come to 1222. Now you can see all the other dates in between that we kept looking at, and we kept thinking, a lot of people thought this is going to be it. This is going to be it, especially 1111, because a lot of you folks out there were seeing that. You're seeing 1111 everywhere. So we had 726, 3 instances of that. We had 919, the signs in Virgo. We had 1011, which is another 726 on the Hebrew calendar. We had 1014, which is the start of that annular eclipse. We thought that might be it. We had 1017, 3.5 days later, which is the end of the sign of Jonah. And it's important that we had that because that gave us the clue for the 3.5 weeks, right? The 1017 was Kreutz, or the cross in Libra, ending that sign. And then finally we have another instance of 726. If you add 30 days to the calendar because of the late barley harvest, you get another 726 on 1111. And then, of course, if you count from 11:11 to 12:21, I believe it is, which would be the first day of the rapture, because it would be over a 2-day span. I believe that's 40 days. And then you see Venus in Libra. And I showed that to you last time, and I asked the question, could this be the Bema Seat judgment? Okay, so this also seems to be a harvest model. In John 4:35, say not ye, there are yet 4 months, and then cometh harvest. Well, if you count from 8:19 to 12:22, that's 125 days, which is 4 months, 3 days. So this is also fits a harvest model. Also, I believe now this is finally solved. I went over this several times without any luck, but I believe this is now it. Since we have 225-day counts, I can say the rise and fall of the Aztec Empire, the Aztecs spanned 200 years, and that clue again is from John. From 1325 to 1525, within this time span, the number 125 appears twice. So that was the clue telling us, hey, you're going to be looking at 2 125-day counts. But even still, we had to have the sign of Jonah to tell us that there's going to be 3.5 weeks in between that. So all the signs seem to be converging now. Everything fits together like a glove. Okay, so let's start at the beginning. The galactic alignment on 12/21/2012 occurred at 1866 or 666, and that's the first part of the uncovering or the apocalypsis. Remember, we saw that in Pi. So this was the start of the 11-year sign, as we see 666 at the beginning of it, and then I'll show you in a moment that we see 153 or 153 big fish at the end of it. And here, of course, Revelation 13:18 is the passage that gives us the 603 score and 6. And something interesting here too is that you can see Venus, which represents Jesus, and you can see Mercury is present also, as if Jesus is saying, I'm giving you a message. There's a message here. All right, so, excuse me, if we zoom in on 12/21/2012, we can see the 2 lines. I added the 2 lines, the ecliptic, which is the line along which the sun and the moon and planets travel along. And then we also have the galactic equator, which travels right through the Milky Way galaxy. They cross, and at the point they cross, we have the sun, evenly distributed or right over that intersection at 1866. So I'm showing you up close that that's a genuine time. I mean, we actually see the galactic alignment at that time, and it's very, very precise. I mean, this can only have been done by God. This is phenomenal. And you'll see this time and time again in some of the calculations I'll show you in just a moment. And this is seen from Jerusalem. Okay, so if we change locations at the same time, we get 966 in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And if we look it up, Strong's G966 is Bethsaida, or House of Fish. And the United States, Albuquerque in the United States, I think would be literally the House of Fish, where this country has been known historically as a Christian nation. So it would be apt to refer to this country as the House of Fish, the 153 big fish. And let's split away from the galactic alignments for just a moment and look at the moon, which is being occulting Venus, which means the moon is hiding Venus from Jerusalem on 11/9/2023 at 13:53, which is 1:53 p.m. So it's speaking of the 153 big fish through the time. But this is also as seen from Jerusalem, and the moon is hiding Venus. It's as if, they can't see Venus, or they don't see Jesus, or they don't see Venus from Jerusalem. That's the message. If we take the same time and we move to Albuquerque, New Mexico, we get a message here again. This happens at 4:53:23 a.m. Mountain Standard Time, and in Strong's, G453 means foolish, fool, unwise. The usage is not understanding. And again, this is simultaneous, where the moon is occulting Venus in Israel at 1:53. So the message seems to be here that they're being foolish. They're not accepting Jesus. They've been rejecting Jesus. Now, if we stay in Albuquerque and we move the time to that 1:53, like the 1:53 big fish, then we can see that the moon and Venus are in conjunction. And I threw up the azimuthal grid so that you can see they're both on the same line. So this actually follows the definition of conjunction. This is telling us that this is a real conjunction, and it happens at 1:53:23. Only God can do this. This is just amazing. If we look at the same conjunction using the ecliptic grid, both of them are still along that line. They're still along the same line, which follows the definition of conjunction. So we're still at 1:53 for the time and still in conjunction, whether we use either grid. Okay, so what happens on 12:22? And I just put the time in there, and I'll solidify that time later on, but the time is 8:53:23 a.m. in Jerusalem, and there's a lot going on. In fact, the sign is, so big that I had to leave one out, and I'll show you that in another slide in just a moment. Excuse me. Okay, so on 12:22 we have Venus in Libra. We also have the child in Ophiuchus along with serpents, and serpents in Ophiuchus. The serpent is struggling with its holder, and the child is being protected. So it looks like on that day, if the rapture does indeed happen, we're going to be protected from any harm from the serpent. And also, now we have the alignment, or actually at this time at 8:53, we're near alignment, but very, very close. John 10:9 is, Tevet 9 would be the day before, 12:21. I am the door, and that's Jesus speaking. And then from 11:11 to 12:22 is 41 days. Revelation 4:1 says a door standing open in heaven. So there's the door imagery for the rapture that day. Okay, so now at 8:53 we're still near galactic alignment on 12:22, and this is seen from Jerusalem, Israel. Move back a little bit so that you can see that, and Mercury the messenger is there. If we move in, then we can see that the actual time of the alignment occurs at 13:53, which is 1:53 p.m. in Jerusalem, reminiscent again of the 1:53 big fish. And this is where the ecliptic and the galactic equator cross. Again, this is just spectacular. I mean, only God can do something like this. This is perfectly aligned with the intersection. Excuse me. Okay. So, galactic alignment on 12:22 at 1:53, which is 13:53 military time, Jerusalem, Israel. So all I did was zoom out so you can see. The zoom in told us what time. Zoom out and you can actually see what's going on. The sun is actually on the intersection of the two lines. Okay, and then here we get another instance of this message where Israel is being foolish. If we look at from Albuquerque on 12:22, if we leave it at 1:53 and move to Albuquerque, the time now becomes 4:53:23. Strong's again, G453 is foolish, fool, unwise, not understanding. So we get that message, as if there are two witnesses to that. And if we go simultaneous to 8:53:23 a.m. in Jerusalem, and we move to Albuquerque, New Mexico, the time we get now is 23:53:23, which is 11:53:23 p.m. on 12/21, the day before. This shows us if a rapture happens, it's going to be between 12/21 and 12/22, depending on where you are in the world. Strong's G5323 is Phanuel, which means the face of God. And indeed, if the rapture happens that day, we will see the face of God. And Luke 2:36 through 38, I just whittled it down a little bit here. It was a large scripture, but basically it's talking about Anna, the prophetess at the temple. She's the daughter of Phanuel. So this ties in Phanuel to that. It tells us that this is part of the sign, the 84-year-old widow at the temple. And indeed, we've been seeing that, and especially through the sign of Jonah, too. Thanks to Repo Man for that. He brought this scripture in, mentioned the scripture. Okay, let's go to the day and the hour, which are actually contained in the sign. And this is probably the peak of the whole talk here. This gives you can actually see it. You can see the hour on that day. So let's preface this by saying we're going to have 3 solar eclipses over America. We only have 2 so far. 2 happened. Last one in October on the 14th. We'll have another one April 8th, 2024, but I doubt we'll be here to see that. Anyway, if you go to Aaron at Got a Minute, he did some nice videos on this about the Aleph Tav that is formed by those 3 eclipses over America. Excuse me, my throat's bothering me today. So the Aleph Tav is written in those 3 eclipses. And the 3 solar eclipses over America cross at 3 different points to form a combined Aleph Tav. Well, I'll show you those cross points. That's where they cross, 3 different points. Strong's H853 is Aleph Tav, and Jesus Christ, of course, is the Alpha and the Omega, the Aleph and the Tav, the beginning and the end. And there were 3 crosses present on Calvary at Jesus' crucifixion. And Calvary is also named Golgotha, the place of the skull, I believe, where they crucified him and 2 other with him on either side, 1, and Jesus in the midst. That's John 19:18. Okay, so this sets us up for something that we're going to see in the sky. So if we add the ecliptic, the galactic equator, and the horizon, and we remove the Earth, we just show the horizon line, we've got a giant Aleph in the sky. And this is huge. This is even bigger than the 3 eclipses over the United States. This is gigantic. This is enormous. And it's not only an Aleph, it's an Aleph Tav. And this occurs on 12/22 at 13:53, which is 1:53 p.m. IST in Jerusalem. That's the exact time of the galactic alignment. And you can see the Aleph, which is formed, and there's also a Tav. So let's take a look at that too. If we remove the horizon line, then we can see the Tav with the remaining 2 lines. So this is like one giant Aleph Tav in the sky. The interesting thing is these lines kind of roll over, and they still form an Aleph Tav at 8:53 a.m. And of course, Aleph Tav gives us the time. Now we have the time, H 8:53, which is 8:53 a.m. because of the other sign that came from pi. But we can also, there are other places as well. There's another source from the 2017 Revelation 12 sign, since that was a daytime sign, that tells us that it can't be 8:53 p.m. It has to occur during the a.m. And there are a number of others too, but this, the main one that really struck me was the one that's in pi, because it's just written right into the string. Okay, so the Aleph Tav in the sky gives us the time, and it also gives us the day, because this occurs on the alignment, the day of the galactic alignment. And if we remove the horizon line, then we can see the Tav. So we had an Aleph, now we have a Tav. All right. This is on 1222, and this was the other one that I was speaking of. You can see three signs in a row. You can see the Libra and the Child, and then you can also see the galactic alignment. But unless you zoom way out, you're going to miss the Moon-Jupiter conjunction in Aries, and this is just spectacular, because now we get more information. This is like a confirmation of what's happening in another place in the sky. So the Moon-Jupiter conjunction in Aries, it's reported at 14:20 GMT, 9:20 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Jupiter will meet the 10-day-old moon in the constellation Aries. Of course, this has already happened. The apparent distance between the two objects will be 2 degrees 36 minutes, and this is from starwalk.space. Strong's G236 means change. To change, to exchange one thing for another, to transform. And this, again, is rapture speak. This sounds like, the glorified bodies that we're transformed into. And this is at 16:20 p.m. Israel. Okay. So let me give you the definition of conjunction, because we'll be looking at that for a few things, but we look at something else, which is where they're actually closer. The two bodies are closer. Let's give the definition. Conjunction, when two celestial objects appear to be close to each other in the sky and have either the same right ascension or the same ecliptic longitude, usually as observed from Earth. So basically that's saying if they're on the same line, there's a conjunction. We take that time we were given. The reported time was 9:20. And I just chose the location New York City because it was easy. At 9:20, this gives us that Eastern Standard Time. And I'm measuring the apparent distance between the two bodies, and I'm getting 1 degree 30 minutes, but that can vary drastically depending on where you're observing from. Anyway, I chose New York City because it's going to be easy to look at something else here called the Appulse, and I'll give you a definition of that. The least apparent distance between two celestial objects as seen from a third body during a given period. So we can measure that too, and the numbers really don't matter that much, other than we try to minimize them and get the closest that these two bodies are together to find that Appulse. And when we do that for this Jupiter-Moon Appulse on 1222, remember this is happening at the same time that the galactic alignment is happening. This is just, God is the only one that can do this. I mean, this is just so precise and so intricate. It gives us a date. It gives us 8/19/2023, which is the start date for the 125-day count to this day, 1222. Just spectacular. It's unbelievable how precise this is. Okay, and again, I'm just restating here that the Appulse occurs at the exact same time as the galactic alignment, 1353-23. Spectacular. And so I thought I would throw this in here, a little bit about the nebulas that are near the cross of those two lines, where the actual galactic alignment happens at one specific time. I had to move the sun out of the way, so it's a different date, but the nebula don't move. So here we are. We've got Webb's cross. So we've got a cross in there very, very close to where the galactic alignment takes place. We also have the Tevet nebula. And Tevet means partly or wholly split into 3 divisions or lobes. And 3 divisions is reminiscent of the Trinity. So it looks like we've got something representing the Trinity here, and we also have the cross. Well, if we zoom out, we also have the Lagoon Nebula, possibly representing the water of life. And we also have a dragon. We have the Chinese Dragon Nebula present. So there's a story written, it seems, even in the nebula that are present right near that point where the galactic alignment takes place. All right, so there's even more going on here to kind of sew it shut. And if we look at the galactic alignment 5 years ago, 12/22/2018, that occurs at 7:77 a.m. in Israel. So we've got a 777, and we've got Mercury present still, saying there's a message here. And if we zoom in, we can see that that really does take place at 777. Now, if we move to 12/27, which would be 5 days after the prospective rapture date, in Sagittarius, we have the sun is evenly divided on the line between the 2 stars at the very top of Sagittarius at the time of 777. So we've got 2 cases of 777. Well, the number 777 is mentioned directly only once in Genesis 5:31 of the Bible. Genesis 5:31, and all the days of Lamech, who's Noah's father, were 770 and 7 years, and then he died. Well, the completion of Lamech's life marked the completion of the pre-flood phase of creation. After everyone apart from Noah and his family was destroyed, a new phase of life for mankind began. Therefore, the number 777 in the Bible represents completion or fulfillment. And this is in bestdailyprayer.org. Okay, so we zoom out a little bit, and we can see those 2 stars that the sun centers on the line between. And Pallas is the top star. That's a double star, but it's also an eclipsing binary system. So we have the word eclipse there. I believe that represents the 2 annular solar eclipses 11 years apart that were seen from Albuquerque. And if we go to the Caus Borealis, which is the bottom double star, I believe that represents the 2 galactic alignments 11 years apart. And the time here is 777, meaning completion or fulfillment. Okay, so let's put it all together. Here's a sort of a flow chart that gives us the galactic alignments and then the 2 signs that say fulfillment or completion. And we start at 12/21/2012, and that was a 666. And then 11 years later, we end up on 12/22, and we see a 153. So there are those 2 numbers that came to us from Pi that were apocalypsis are going to be revealed. And those were the sum of those were 819, and that gave us the start date for that last 125-day count. There's a lot going on here. It's very precise. And if you look at the bottom, you'll see that 12/22/2018 is that galactic alignment that said fulfillment through the time 777, and there's 5 years from that to the prospective rapture date this year. And then 5 days after that prospective rapture date, we have another sign that says 777 or fulfillment on 12/27. Well, there's a third 5, and that occurs between, if the rapture happens at 8:53, it's exactly 5 hours from that time to 1:53:23, which is the actual, time right down to the minute, even to the second, I believe, for the galactic alignment that day. 5 hours exactly, indicating the end of grace. And then another interesting thing is if we go from the winter solstice occurs on 12/22 at 5:27 a.m. Israel Standard Time, and if we count from that to the prospective rapture at 8:53, it's 3 hours, 26 minutes, 23 seconds, and Strong's G326 means be alive again, revive, live again, recover life, to be restored to a correct life. And of course, right now we're in a fallen state, so this would, if we got glorified bodies, we would be restored. So this is really phenomenal how this plays out. Let's see, did I catch everything? I believe so. 3 things happening that day: solstice, a prospective rapture, and then 153, a message saying grace has ended and the rapture has happened. The 153 big fish. So this is a phenomenally complex and very intricate sign. The 2 days of the rapture would be Tevet 10, December 21st, John 10:9, I am the door. And then Tevet 10, or 10:10, John 10:10, the thief does not come except to steal and to kill and to destroy. I have come that they may have life and have it more abundantly. So this is a beautiful thing, saying you're going to be restored. It's a life-giving verse. And then Tevet 10, also in 479 BC, is where Esther appears before the king for the first time and is chosen by him to be the queen. So we also have this bride, this bridal theme running throughout this. Anyway, that's Tevet 10. That would be December 22nd. The 2 days, the 21st and the 22nd, prospective rapture. And then if we count from 11:11, remember these dates were given to us as signs. We had 3 times 726 saying Harpazo, Harpazo, Harpazo. And then we had, dates that were start dates. And we also had the sign of Jonah. Now we had 11:11 was a start date to 12:22. And that's 41 days. And that corresponds to Revelation 4:1, where a door is standing open in heaven. A voice like a trumpet says, come up here. And again, this is rapture speak. Okay, I was not going to put this slide in here, but I think God wanted me to, because I kept seeing 144 everywhere until I put this in. I had to do one more calculation. And what this was is we have a world population of 8.1 billion. That's just approximate. And that was taken on 11/27, the number that you see at the top, at 3:07 p.m. That's a count or an estimate from worldometers. And Christians, there's a projection of 31% Christians in the world in 2023 by Pew Research. If we take that number that came from worldometers and multiply by 0.31, we get approximately 2.5 billion Christians in the world today. And I couldn't get the exact count from 918, so I had to go near to it, which is even better because it's a little bit larger number. I'm from 10.6. But if you multiply that number from 10.6 by 0.179, representing the 179th day, the 180th day being the rapture, we get 1.44 billion sealed Christians ready to be raptured. And then if you subtract 1.44 from the 8.1 billion, that says there are going to be 6.66 billion left behind. Well, Pastor Wright's late wife, Christina, had a dream in which she was at work and everyone was running around going crazy. They're all frantic, but nobody could find 811. And I said in past videos, I believe this is because the rapture happens and the world will never see 811. It won't see 8.11 billion people. Well, I did a calculation, and this is what I think God wanted me to throw in here. If you project the numbers to about 1221, you get 8.09 billion people in the world at that time. If we multiply that by the same 0.179, we come up with approximately 1.44811 billion people. Well, there you have the number 144 next to 811, saying that, I think the message here is that if the rapture happens and 1.44 billion Christians leave, again, this is confirmation that 811 will not happen. So there, I've said it. I hope I don't see 144 anymore. All right, so the Harpazo days, I've shown you this in the past, and I've had it adjusted to the previous days that didn't turn out to be anything. But this time it sure looks like something's going to happen. I mean, there are so many, even a huge sign using the galaxy. Something's got to happen, I think. Anyway, the Harpazo days would be 1221 and 1222, and these would be the times in Israel and then in the U.S. across the 4 time zones that we have in the U.S. I guess maybe more than that if you include Hawaii. But anyway, and Mexico City, where the Maya calendar came from, we're going over that, and I hope this helps you. And thank you for watching. This time I really do hope I see you in the sky. I hope this is it. God bless you all. Thanks for watching.